Yeah, greetings, Monel. What's up, sir? Yeah, just getting home from the gym and just freshening up, and I still ain't shaved yet, but I'll do that, when I get time. I mean, you're a little late, rainy night, so you had to take your time. But welcome to the new show, the Clown Show Diaries. We got the Clown Show Diaries again. Man, this world is crazy. Let me make sure I get my um guest on. Um, come on. And well, thank you, sir. Greetings to you as well. It's been I feel like I've arrived again. I'm kind of had me a thing. I feel like I might even mention Joe Rogan tonight, but they offered him $100 million to leave Spotify and go to Rumble. Why do you think that is? True. We live in a censorship era now. It's very frustrating to me. Sometimes they don't want you to say what you want to say, right? But you still got to get it out another way. So I think those who were texting me and making sure that my channel was still around. Um, Waiting on the bishop and the judge because I think I'm gonna have a lot to talk about tonight. Um, I really am gonna have a lot to talk about, and I'll break it down in segments, of course, but it is what it is. I would think that people would, really, really, want to hear what I got to say today. So I'll talk about these voting rights issues and all that other stuff, um, midterms, and a couple other things. Let me call these guests to make sure they're all right. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm on. All right. All right, cool. Yeah, Hannah, but this could be interesting, brother. It could be. It will be interesting because I haven't had him on in 2 months, and it's not my fault that I haven't had him on in 2 months. People would ask me when you get the judge back, or when you get the judge back. I'm like, well, shoot, daggone, I can't get nobody on. I say I had an interview with him on Twitch, but I mean, I was censored, man. It's like, I was. They cut me off at the knees. So I want him to speak a little bit. You know, I learned a little bit. Hey, this is really going to be interesting because these people do not give a damn who they offend, and it makes no difference who you are. Anything against the narrative will be challenged, and that's just a fact. So, that being said, waiting on the bishop and waiting on the judge. I'm gonna have to call him probably or get him, text him or Twitter him or something, tweet him to get him on because you know, this will be interesting. But we can talk about these voting rights. We can talk about this trans stuff. I had an interesting situation last week in the locker room at the gym, and I got to talk about that because I got to talk about how it fits in censorship. I always bring a situation that happened in my own life and then bring it into reality. So I got to talk about these things as well. There's a lot of stuff going on that I really have not been really paying attention to lately. What's going on, sir? How you doing, sir?
How you doing, Bernard? How you making out?
I'm doing good. I'm
Good,
I'm
good.
doing good. I'm back from the dead.
You have
They had me
arisen. You have
they had me
arisen.
under suspension. Remember?
Oh, I know.
Twice. One time with you.
I know. Wasn't that something? And then
Yeah, I mean, I'm the hey, look, man.
you're
I'm
on
the
the hit
biggest,
list.
baddest. I'm the biggest, baddest person at 148 pounds.
You
Isn't that right?
got that right. You're on
Because
that
I
hit
said
list.
I never thought in the day they would do that to me twice in a month.
Isn't that something?
But it's
But
okay.
but but here you are.
Yeah,
Here
they
you are.
released the
Back
hold.
again.
So, and when I said when I got back, I was gonna bring you back.
Yes, you did. And here we are again.
I
What
try
was
to
that?
keep my issues. Like I said, I mean, some things that haven't made me feel, but I'm just peeping everything around, and I say everything I've said, right?
Yep. It's coming
Has
true.
came to fruition.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
And I can say this. People may look at it, laugh at it, and say this, but I said, hey, I don't care if it 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year. I don't need no self-validation, man.
Oh no.
but it goes to show you that what I read and researched, 95% of it came true. And I'm almost willing to bet you 100% of it, 99.9% of it will be true.
Oh yeah. Even yet, some more stuff has to come to fruition.
That's right. So I'm not
and it's coming.
upset.
It's coming.
That's why I said I don't never, and I always sit there and say, it's a lot of people, that say, man, that's loony, man. I mean, well, I'm just telling you what I read. I was having a conversation with my great aunt.
Uh-huh.
And we had a conversation, and we were talking about when I was a little boy.
Okay.
And I was 2 years old, and she said I always would bank on your reading skills or whatever. And she said, I when you were 2 or 3 years old, I bought you a dictionary for $100. And she said by the time you was 4 years old, you had read the whole thing from A to Z.
Wow. That's something.
She had always told me that your reading skills will always help you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They have helped. They have helped in some ways, because I'm able to give it to you, and then I'm able to punctuate it to you and show you, well, these are the key words you need to look out for.
Right.
But actually, I'm glad I'm going to get the judge on, because we got to talk about that too, because I was doing a study the other day, and I looked at a lot of these schools. Okay. No child left behind.
Right.
But every child's getting left behind. In the city of Baltimore 2 years ago, you had 19 schools, but 13 or 19 of them had failing grades.
Right.
Where do you think those failing schools were at?
In our neighborhoods.
That's right.
In the black neighborhoods, yep.
So I look at it like, if you have that problem, it's nothing that you really can do about it. We're also going to talk a little bit about the so-called voting rights.
Okay.
Because you just had a guy on ESPN, J.A. Adande, come out and say out his mouth that in China, the treatment of the Uyghur Muslims is almost akin to voting rights in the United States. Now, wait a minute, man.
That's
I
crazy.
want you to repeat that.
That's crazy.
There's some clown stuff right there that actually you could come out of your mouth and say that voting rights is akin to people being a victim of genocide. Think about that now.
There's no correlation. There's no correlation at all. Not one. Not one. How can you possibly say the slaughter of millions is the same as voting rights? But what did Biden do? He equated it to slavery, the civil rights movement. When he said about Jefferson Davis versus Abraham Lincoln, George Wallace
right here.
Dr.
You can't see it. ESPN guest asks who are reader criticized China's human rights assault records when red states assault voting rights. Now, let me ask you a question, Bishop. I know you've been around for a while, man.
A little bit.
Ain't that some of the craziest stuff you ever heard in your life?
Yeah. But see, what it does, it validates, and it brings, they think it brings home the point of the seriousness of it. But what it does to me, it shows that it's a manipulative device. They're manipulating situations to equate it to genocide there in China against a province against the people on a daily basis, being imprisoned and being beaten and tortured and all of this type of thing, raped and sterilized and all of these things too. Voting rights here in the United States, first of all, I don't really see any major issue. I really don't. I've been looking at this thing. I've been studying this, and I've been studying what the Republican states have proposed. I've read what the Democrats want to see and what they're stressing and all of this. But for the life of me, and maybe there's one or two points that we could debate and maybe argue the point. But for the life of me, the majority was being proposed by these red states is not limiting anybody. I mean, it's required to get a fishing license for you to have an ID. It's required if you want to get married, you have to have an ID. If you go to the hospital, you have to have an ID. You apply for Social Security, you have to have an ID. There's nothing really in this nation that does not require a photo ID. And most people that I know, and I'll be honest with you, most people that I don't know anybody, not personally, that does not have either a driver's license, a passport, a state ID, or whatever the case may be. Many people have more than that. They got all of the above I just mentioned and more. So for there to be such a on that point, it's nonsense. And some of the arguing points made by the Democrats is racist. To me, to say that I can't use a computer to apply for a driver's license or a state ID, that I can't get off my butt and go down to the DMV or go down to any other agency that issues state IDs and photo IDs, that somehow or another I'm too ignorant, too uninformed, too lacking in ability to get this, or I can't afford it, or I mean, you're saying a lot about us. That I can't afford $25. I mean, I know people that in my inner circle that spend that on cigarettes, spend that on lunch at Mickey D's or Burger King or whatever. So to tell me that I can't afford this and I can't afford that, or I'm limited in my mental ability to do this or that, it's really a insult to African Americans. And I would be taken aback, and I am, but many aren't, that you're using me once again as a scapegoat, as a poster child for your agenda. You don't care about my agenda. You don't care about my life. You don't care whether I prosper or whether I die, to be honest with you. But when you want to push your agenda, here you come, you dust us off, and you put us center stage, and we fall for it, too many of us. I'm so glad there are people now that are becoming enlightened like you, Frank Nitti, Chaz, Victor, and all the rest of our inner circle, that are the young men and young women like Felicia and others who are now beginning to take another look at things. And even some of the old guard like myself and Judge Brown that are in their 70s, we're looking at this thing from a different perspective. We're calling it like it is. We're seeing it like it truly is. And we've lived a while. We know what discrimination is. We know what racism is. We know about, because we were born before the civil rights movement, or just at the beginning of it. We know about Jim Crow and all of that type of thing. Even in my town here in the north, Darby, when I went to the movie, when I was a little boy, when I went to the movie, I had to go to the balcony. I remember those days. Going past 5 towns and their schools in order to go to my school, 5 towns away from where I lived. I remember those days. And they're not too far removed because I'm still around and I remember those days. So don't make it sound like it's ancient history. It's not ancient history. A good many of us are still around. The baby boomers are still alive and well, and we remember those things. And we have to remember those things better because we fall for the okie doke every time a Clyburn, every time a Maxine comes around. We fall for that okie doke. We got to remember our own history. I don't have to read a book. I lived it. Judge Brown don't have to read a book. He lived it. Pianki doesn't have to read a book. We've lived it. And we got to remember it. And stop thinking that this new age has changed the opinion of people. They're a little slicker. They're a little shrewder. They come up with all these little gesturings, these symbolisms that look like they're our allies, but they're not our allies. The best you can say, they're our frenemies. And in my opinion, they're our enemies. But you can't be a friend and an enemy. That's that little frenemy thing. That's another little gimmick word. How could you be my friend and my enemy? Come on now. But we fall for it. We even got a word now, frenemy. You can't be my friend and my enemy. How is that possible? But once again, we fall for the okie doke. You know, they're not really my enemy. They're my frenemy. Come on. When you're not for me, you're against me. When you're not on my side, you're on the other side.
So you are actually an opposer.
That's right. And that's a definition for what? An enemy. A little slicker, a little fancier. He'll smile in your face. All the time he wants to take your place, like the OJ said. He'll come to your church and pat your children on the head and kiss your little babies. He'll do all that. Oh, yeah, he'll come to, he'll pass out a turkey every Thanksgiving. Give you a little child like a little Santa Claus, a little toy.
Let me ask you a question, man. Let's give me a turkey one day a year when there's enough turkeys to give out 365.
Come on.
Let's pet my baby on the head. Don't you pet your own baby on the head?
Of course. I don't need somebody coming around once a year and pat my baby. In fact, I don't trust that. They tell me not to trust that. Pat him, kiss your baby. Oh, he's so sweet. Come to my church once a year. Most time, once every 4 years. Or every election year. What about the other 3 years? My church is still open. I never see you at my church. None election year. Where are you the other 3 years? Or if you're a congressman, where are you the other 2 years while you're in Washington? You ever come to my church then? No. You don't need me then. You got what you wanted from me. Now you're gone.
I ain't got no money.
That's right. There you go. And if you do give me something, there's strings attached. You don't give me nothing for nothing.
You see some of my pictures, right?
Yep.
I DJ sometimes. I DJ quite frequently, actually, right?
Oh yeah. I've been on your little live broadcast where you do the DJ.
Okay,
stuff.
Good. Okay, now let me bring this to your attention. Every now and then, you may do a promotional event for the kids, right? Maybe. But look. If you come to me and you say you want me to do your wedding, right? Well, I'll do your wedding. Well, okay. Well, can we discuss the terms and conditions, please?
That's right.
Well, I'm just gonna pat you on the head. Well,
yes.
You're gonna have to get somebody else to your wedding that want a pet on their head, ain't you? I mean, unless it's like a, it's like,
I
because
mean, it's all like I always say, it's smoke and
when you go to
mirrors.
the grocery store, right?
Mm.
You go to the grocery store for good services, and at the end of the day, you do a transaction. So I'm trying to find out why do we. Well, first of all, I have to tell you the truth. We don't get the good services or the transaction. We come out with negatives on all three.
Why? Because we don't make it. Look, everything is a contractual thing. It's bartering. I have this, and you have that. It's a fair exchange. If you want a pack of meat, you have
Even
to pay
exchange.
$5, $10, $14, $15 for this. I'll give you this meat if you give me that money. I'll give you this if you give me that. We don't do that. The average African American, the average one, will give the vote to the Democrat and make no demands on what they want out of it until it's too late. Now the person's in office. Now we talking about, well, I thought Biden going to do this. I thought Biden was going to do that. And that's why I voted for him. You didn't make no demands on that man. He told you flat out that he's not going to give you any reparations if it doesn't include Native Americans, but you still voted for him. He talked to your leaders like they were children on a playground, scolding them on that Zoom meeting, but you still voted for him. He said, if you don't vote for me and vote for Trump, you're not black. And so you wanted to be black somehow or another, like that's going to make you black or not. And so you voted for him with that. I'm not talking about the
Hold on.
1990s.
Stop for a minute. Stop for a minute. Stop. Hold tight.
Oh, Judge.
How you doing, sir? It's been a long time, man. They've been having me on the censorship campaign, but that's okay. You back. How you doing?
Hey,
Judge.
Judge.
How are you?
How you doing?
I'll manage.
That's good. Daggone, hey, man, they had your buddy censored for a couple months, but they're back. But we got to talk about that, too,
What
a little
was
bit.
that? Well, who did you badmouth to get censored?
Man, I don't know, man. They might got me like your girl. I was reading the article yesterday about your buddy, Andrew Stanton King, and they called her an anti-LGBTQ bigot.
Well, then that's half the people in America. LGBTQ is not gay. It's a cult. That's like saying, you were against Jim Jones and that bunch of assholes before they passed out the Kool-Aid. That meant you're supposed to be anti-Christian? No, you're just anti-cult.
Right.
LGBTQ is effectively
I pissed off the
a
big
political party. Well, probably they need it. There's some assholes. They don't understand that this country got strong from free speech, and they try to protect a small percentage of the population from getting their little weak feelings hurt. And what they wind up doing is weakening everybody else in the process. You get strong from standing up to the strong ideas that may be exchanged. We used to pass the time of day in school during recess and lunch, after school too. Hey man, I won't say nothing, man, but I was over to your house last night while you was asleep. Me and your mama was playing, man. We'd run the dozens. Now these little punk asses can't even sit up. He told about my mama. Well, so damn what? Say something back, fool. Or are you that inarticulate and ignorant that you can't come up with some verbiage to respond with?
That's it, Judge. You're right.
Well, speaking of Judge, I know. Let me bring a few things up because I know it's been a couple. Well, we did do that thing on Twitch that time, but I never found out how to download it, so that kind of sucks. But let me bring this up. So I know you got a couple things going on. Let me bring them out. I know you got the Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce. I know you're running for mayor, so go ahead and talk about it because we got to talk about these voting rights thing for a minute.
Yes. By the way, one other little thing, that bit they're doing on Whoopi Goldberg, I was just looking at the Military History Channel / History Channel / Smithsonian Channel. And for the whole damn month, they've been running this, and it's been going on for the last 8 years. 6 years. Apocalypse Stalin. And they're talking about what happened in World War II at the end when they discovered that the Nazis had killed 25 million Russian citizens. And they were trying to break it down into this, that, and the other. And the Jews were killed. And Stalin said, oh, no. He said, we will not distinguish dead Russian citizens by a religion. It's 25 million Russians, not 1.5 million Jews got killed. See what I'm saying? In other words, everybody is equally valuable when it comes to their life that got lost in the process, not just one group. And see, I'm still pissed off about this same bunch of jackasses is promoting all the use of the N-word, bitch and hoe and everything else on all of their media formats. And they don't want to deal with the conservative estimate on the number of Africans that were killed in the Middle Passage. At least 35 million and an up level of 100+ million. And they don't say crap about that. And now they got some stooges who talk this stuff about the Middle Passage is a lie. And some space aliens brought black folk over here 250,000 years ago, which is bull. And they want to get around it. And some idiots talking about you couldn't bring anybody over on a sailing boat sealed in a hole, they'd suffocate. No, they brought people over.
Let me speak about that Whoopi Goldberg piece right quick. Let me say something about that. Because that has been a big thing in the news, and I do want to talk about it because that goes into this driving of censorship they've been doing. Whether they're censoring for the virus, they censor for this, they censor for that. Look here. You know, this. I just want to bring up something about this Whoopi. They gonna spend her for 2 weeks, but they want to remove Joe Rogan on Spotify. Now they're saying it's because of the N-word, right? They're saying it's because of the N-word, right? But actually, they didn't talk about this. He's been saying that. So what the hell is going on? Then you got the other part of the deal where you got Meghan Markle, the Obamas. They're saying if Joe Rogan's on Spotify, take me off. I didn't even know the Obamas had a deal. Well, I did know they had a deal with Spotify, but I'm not listening to them. Man, look, if you don't like what he's saying,
take his ass off. Well, take his ass off. Take his ass off.
So, hey, Judge, you're not listening to Spotify, listening to Barack Obama, are you?
No, and see, Barack Obama got raised by an autocratic oil baron who also ran death squads and subcontracted counterintelligence for the CIA. He ran it in Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam, North Korea, and China. See, he ran the death squads for the Indonesian government back in the late 50s, and they had a warrant out for him from The Hague for crimes against humanity for allegedly killing or being responsible for the killing of 500,000 people. So that's who raised this son of a bitch that they love as their little pet, you know, facsimile Negro.
And I said there, Judge, because that's, I mean, the whole thing, Kamala, Obama, and they almost rhyme. You almost make a poem out of that, Obama, Kamala. But nevertheless, and they are a joke. They are in a way a poem. The whole thing is a joke. For us to be still talking about that man as though he's a hero, where it's proven over and over again, even as president of the United States, he was anything but a hero, not just for against black folk, but against America as well. You know, we still
an enemy of the people.
He really was, and he should be
an enemy of the people.
Well, yes, I will agree with you. Barack Obama should be held for crimes against humanity for them drone wars. You are right. That is 100% true.
What the worst thing is not the drone wars per se. it is the position that his administration briefed in a federal court to resist an injunction that was put on him that he violated, and technically he should have been impeached for it, wherein there was a gentleman who was an American citizen, born in America, from Detroit, Michigan, was saying some nasty things about the U.S. government relative to what was going on in the Middle East. And that man had a 16-year-old son, also born in Detroit, Michigan, and a U.S. citizen. And he got enjoined. I mean, Obama got enjoined by a federal court, but he violated the injunction and had the man murdered by a drone 3 months later while the injunction was pending. And then 4 hours after he got the grown man murdered by a drone, he had his 16-year-old son murdered by a drone. And that's still pending, and he ought to be prosecuted and sent to a federal penitentiary for first-degree murder. As the judge pointed out from the bench, that's reflected on a transcript of the proceedings, he said, wait a minute, how can you possibly say that? And the U.S. attorney said, well, it's inherent in his power. He says, what about the Bill of Rights? And the lawyer for the government said, excuse me. And the judge said, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, nor property without due process of law. He said, so you're going to deprive this man of his life without due process of law? Where did you get that? And see, that's still standing. And then it even got worse. The judge said, well, let me get this straight so I fully understand it. The administration's position is that if someone inadvertently leaves the country, they may be just flat out murdered on the president's order. So, well, not exactly. He said, what do you mean not exactly? He said, well, they don't have to leave the country. And the transcript says, pause. The judge says, so let me get this straight. You're saying that this administration can have somebody murdered here in the United States of America? I said, yeah. He said, well, what happens if the police stumble on this murder? What's supposed to go down? I said, well, he can pardon whoever is responsible since they were acting under his inherent authority. He said, well, who pardons him?
Well, let me bring up something
that's
here.
the way it is right now. And that is the most dangerous thing anybody has done in America in the last 30 years.
Wow.
Well, let me bring up something right. Let me bring up something here because we were talking about before you came on. We were talking about this issue of voting rights, right? And you just had a guy in China. No, an ESPN reporter just had a nerve to come out of his mouth and say the genocide of the Uyghur Muslims is akin to red states not allowing voting rights in the U.S. I said, these people have some nerve. These people are crazy. I've never heard that.
Wait. Question. Has anybody forgotten Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, when he said, tell a lie long enough, loud enough, you can get anybody to believe it?
Nobody believes that, Judge.
What voting rights is anybody in this country being deprived of? Answer, nobody. But there are many voting improprieties that these clowns are trying to set up. A woman who's got mental health issues here, I know her, and she's whacked out. And on a radio show, I told her not to do it. She would go to jail, but she got 6 years in jail for an election fraud situation. She was on the Central Committee for the local Democratic Party, and she's got 16 prior felony convictions for one thing or another. She went ahead to try and register folk that should not have been registered and falsify affidavits.
The BLM
so that's voter fraud. Yeah, nobody got deprived. You sent me that one. I sent you a comment back. I said the woman is not a local BLM founder. She's mentally ill. I told her she'd go to jail on a local radio station before she did it. Now, the woman's been in and out of mental health institutions since she's been 3 or 4 years old, and maybe they should have put her in one instead of a prison. But maybe they will send her back to a mental institution again. This woman got convicted of stalking 6 or 7 separate judges, civil judges, who found that she should be committed, not all for the same event. Hell, one time she came down to a business, a place I was operating. I told everybody to get her out of there, and I left for about 5 minutes, came back, there were 7 squad cars. I saw the woman sit up one time. She was acting whacked out. Some gangbangers were shooting up a McDonald's and Mickey D's down the street from a nightclub. The nightclub management asked the police to please come by. They did, and this fool ran up trying to block the police from going in. So, I mean, I've seen her personally commit crimes, but yet everybody is believing this nonsense about she's a victim of persecution. What about all of the Trump supporters who are, no, remember, it's the other way around. He got censored like you did for making a supposedly false allegation that there was election fraud.
Yep.
So what gives?
Well,
This looks like the Nazis. And by the way, Nazi is a German acronym. It's the initials that stands for National Socialist Workers Party.
Right.
So LGBTQ needs to just back the hell off. People can talk about them like they talk about all of the rest of us. What do they call us now? Cisgendered norms. And that BLM garbage. Remember, until recently they had posted, we are a queer affirming network organization. We are for the suppression of cisgender privilege in the family. We are for the destruction of the traditional nuclear family. Now, those dangerous clowns can talk about anything they want because so many of their running dogs are controlling the mainstream media. But the rest of us, we're supposed to say, oh, bye-bye, First Amendment. We don't have any, we agree we have no right to talk back
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Things to these charlatans.
I want you and Bishop to talk about this because what they're doing now, they're saying that the people in prison for January 6th, their charges might not be brought up until the 2024 midterms. I mean, what is this, like minor trespass or something? What are we talking about here? Why are we,
What about the Bill of Rights? What about the Bill of Rights what about the Bill of Rights that says you have a right to a public and speedy trial? So we can just flip all the way back to Nazi Germany and keep them locked up indefinitely with no formal legal proceedings against them for essentially what amounted to misdemeanor trespass and vandalism. Although they compounded with the federal laws by saying they conspired to make it a felony, but still it is what it is. It's no more, no less than what's been going on all over the country for the last 2 years, driven by Antifa, LGBTQ, and BLM. It's a con run on the public.
I'm coming to them. I'm coming to BLM too. I'm coming.
And by the way,
go ahead and say something. I'm coming to BLM.
Let me just piggyback with you.
One other thing, Bishop, that needs to be considered. If you take American history, they've had gunfights, sword fights, and fist fights on multiple occasions in the halls of Congress in American history. Nobody raised a fuss about it. But trespass, oh my God. Somebody's trying to deal with, what does the First Amendment say? You have a right to petition for redress of grievance. And it doesn't have to be a written petition. It can be a demonstration or a protest. So what happened to our First Amendment that these clowns are trying to suppress and oppress?
And the thing to me is they manipulate it, because what's good for the goose should be good for the gander, but it's not. And I'm going to tell you the truth. And I wasn't for January the 6th. I think the tactic was not the best tactic. But let's be clear about one thing, that we have to remember the Constitution says that if the government is not complying with the desires and the needs of the people and are working contrary to what the people want and require. The people have a right to make, just like you said, Judge, a protest, not just marching with a picket sign, but actual demonstrative protest, demanding that their government that they elected, those persons that were arrested, elected many members of that Congress. I would venture to say everybody voted for somebody in either the House or the Senate. Those people that went into the Capitol, I would imagine they all voted for somebody, whether it was a Democrat, or Independent, or Republican.
And one other thing I find very fascinating, Bishop, is when the so-called break-in occurred that stopped proceedings, the thing next up was a matter of the 1877 law known as Confidence in Elections Law, which requires, if it is evoked when the citizenry is showing a lack of confidence in the election, that a 15-member commission be appointed. 5 members of the U.S. Supreme Court, 5 members of the House, and 5 members of the Senate. At that time, you recall the Republicans dominated the Senate, the Democrats the House, and Trump had made some successful appointments to the Supreme Court. So it would have been 3 Republican appointees to the U.S. Supreme Court, 2 Democrats. It would have been 3 Republicans for the Senate representation, 2 Democrats, and 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans for the House. So the Republican Party would have controlled the Confidence Committee that has been an aspect of American law since 1877 when the bill was passed. What that means is when there is a breakdown and a lack of public confidence, this 15-member committee shall conduct a survey and an audit within 10 days of the election, or longer as may be required, and everything's supposed to stop until it's done. So it's convenient that these fools declare a disaster right when that was supposed to come up. And remember, that is the law. That's been in place for, 150 years.
Okay, let me bring up something that's going on here, because you mentioned something, and Dana sent me a text. I'm getting to that, but I got to bring up this thing about the Supreme Court. And I will nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court to solve all your problems. What do you think, Judge?
Ridiculous. And I had a couple of sisters that I thought might have been good on the Supreme Court, but they just retired, so they wouldn't be eligible the way he's talking. But I do notice that there is one black woman from California who seems to have been blackballed by the Democratic black women in California, but she's on that list. But I found it interesting because Bishop, Brother Johnson, the other day, I was talking to somebody who was lauding that being one of the fruits of the Nonviolent Civil Rights Act. Well, and the civil rights activity. That's not the case. If she went to UCLA and graduated when I see she is supposed to have graduated, I don't know her, but there is a friend who is a mentor of mine, now deceased, and he, myself, some other individuals had been working to get more black people into law school. And there was a dean known as Murray Schwartz, who we basically kind of intimidated into agreeing that more black people in UCLA law would be a good thing. Well, he kind of reneged on it. So let's just say the deceased, who died of old age in his 80s, pulled his 4-inch barreled Colt Python, cocked it, put it to Dean Schwartz's head, and was seriously intent on blowing his brains out if he didn't sign the missive that he was supposed to sign, which he did. So that isn't exactly, well, I guess it's peaceful since nobody got shot, but a show of force, let's put it that way. So this woman being this woman being considered for the U.S. Supreme Court wouldn't be out of law school, wouldn't be in the position had some righteous brother not shown a show of force that had nothing to do with being peaceful. See what I'm talking about?
But my concern is this.
Don't ask me how I know. He was dead and everybody else but me is dead and the would-be victim's dead, but it's still a felony. So I'm not admitting that I was there to see that. This is, of course, hearsay. You understand?
Yes, we understand, Judge. We understand completely. Yes. My take is this. I guess I become very cynical about people's motives. I mean, he chose a black woman to be his quote unquote black woman. That's why I put her. I don't really consider her a black woman, but nevertheless, he did, and many do.
Facsimile.
Exactly.
Facsimile.
Not even a close one. Not even a close one. But nevertheless, and now here he is again, promising he's going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. My thing is, what difference does it really make?
It doesn't. I mean, how about somebody that'll follow law and deal with applying the Bill of Rights instead of going along with this censorship crap and all of the rest of the undercut that we've got going on right now?
I hope that would be the case, because I just don't believe Joe Biden would put somebody on that would want to challenge that. My problem is this, which I think is a saving grace. When Trump was president, and the liberals either died out or resigned or retired, he chose to put conservatives in, which swayed the court to a more conservative view. Because it's 5-4, and in this case, Biden is only replacing a liberal with a liberal, the composition of the court will not be drastically changed, actually. She will have very little swaying power, as did the Trump nominees, or naturally appointees now, because they were confirmed. So it's good. Once again, see, people, I'm going to tell you, politicians are very slick in this sense, in particular the Democrats in particular. They have a way of making something seem like it matters when it doesn't matter at all. Trump's nominees mattered.
No, you're right. You're right.
And I think they know that. They know this nominee is not gonna. It's not gonna. What's it gonna do? The composition still will be 5-4. It was still, because you replaced.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Liberal.
Let me say this. That's not quite the case.
Okay.
Thurgood Marshall was known to be very good with a baseball bat or a 12-gauge shotgun. He always required, when he traveled around the country to take these weird cases dealing with racism and violence, that somebody have him a good Louisville Slugger or a 12-gauge shotgun and some ammo, so if he had to defend himself. And he did what he did.
Yes.
Even Uncle Clarence Thomas, he was an activist. I'm acquainted with him, and I ran into him after he got into Yale Law School. Hell, I was already out of law school when they had him traveling all over the country talking against affirmative action in order to stay in Yale Law School after allegedly flunking out after the first year. A conservative white professor discovered that he had submitted the wrong grade and changed it so he could stay in. So every year after that, every summer for the next 2 years, he traveled around the country talking against affirmative action. He went to a state where they didn't require that you take the bar if you graduated from Yale Law, and they swore him in. And for the next 2.5 years, he went around the country talking against affirmative action. That's not good for us, but at least it shows that somebody had the courage of his apparent convictions and got out and did something. Now, I want to see somebody on this list they have from the White House who has gone out and done something for somebody besides hide in the shadows over the course of her legal career. I didn't, and a lot of other people I know didn't hide during their legal career. They went out and did something, even if I personally consider it the wrong thing. They did something. So I'm looking at all of these safety cats they've got out there, these safety kittens, who have simply flashed knees and legs and batted some eyelashes and gone along with the flow. I want to see some that made something happen in the racism of the wrong go. You know, I haven't seen that. So what are we getting? More surrogates for LGBTQ / BLM BS? Or more Joe Biden BS?
Dana sent me an article from the LA Times. Supreme Court blocks new black majority district in Alabama. I'm pulling it up, but it's in win for GOP. But then it's telling me subscribe 4 months. But you can go to LA Times story. Supreme Court blocks new majority black district in Alabama. I'm gonna pull it up to another, and I'll read some of it off on another.
I've seen that.
Okay, go ahead.
I've seen that. But the rules are the rules. They've been the rules since the country has been in existence 240 some years. So what is the problem? In some areas, when the Democrats take over a state government, yeah, they can gerrymander too. They used to do it all the time. That's when black folk really couldn't vote, when the Democrats had control. Now, you let these LGBTQIA BS folk take over the government through the surrogate Democratic Party, and you're likely to get that restoration of discrimination and outright privation of voting rights. Like I said, right here in Memphis, Shelby County, Tennessee, they just put a woman in jail for 6.5 years for voter fraud. The Justice Department, since the Obama administration, the Bush administration, also in the Obama administration and under the Trump administration, has declared that in Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee, there hasn't been a fair election since 2000 because of voting fraud. They put the money up in 2008, which is 14 years ago. And at least 3 black Democrats on the county commission have blocked replacement of these corrupted voting machines that are based on Windows 2000. There never was a firewall. There never was a security system. There is no update or upgrade that is available. So we have not had a fair election here since 2000. California used to use the machines, and to cut down anybody else using them, they published an online pamphlet that shows how to hack an election with these machines, and all you need is an iPhone, a BlackBerry, or an Android. They show you how to do it. And it's been done over and over again. So who is it talking about privation of voting rights? Now, these charlatan surrogate Negroes here in Memphis and Shelby County, for the most part, belong to the white moneyed interest. And they have undercut, sold out, and done wrong for the black community here in this county. So much it is pathetic. And guess what? In the city of Memphis, only 19.1% of the registered voters are white. In Shelby County, only 28+% of the registered voters are white. And we can't run anything because these clowns allow these corrupted machines to be in place, and have done so for 22 years and still don't want to get rid of them, and got a major election with 450 some people on the ballot coming up this August. Now you tell me what that is. And somebody with a straight face tells a Nazi lie about there's no voter fraud, and all of the media chimes in on that BS. LGBTQIA BS.
Well, very interesting.
It's a shame.
It is.
Bishop, this is your domain, but I think that's a good first-class ticket to hell.
My goodness. That's right.
Champagne service. They'll serve their ass champagne on the way there.
Yep.
Well,
they drink.
Well, I've been looking at more so lately. We got the midterms coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
what's on the ballot in this area in August. There is there are a number of national midterm positions that'll be on the ballot.
Shopton, Clyburn. Oh, by the way, let me talk about my own state of Virginia.
You mean Pulpit Pimp Sharpton? Oh, Bishop, does he have a pulpit?
No, he doesn't. Never did.
So how in the hell are you gonna be a preacher and you never had a pulpit to preach
Never
from?
was a pastor. Never was a pastor. Never of any church.
Well,
not even forefront.
Well,
Pimp.
I'm gonna bring something up because they keep on
James
talking about the Black
Brown
Caucus.
started
Here in Norfolk, Virginia, in the Tidewater area, we got a guy named Cardoza, black guy. He wants to join the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, but they told him, "You're a Republican, you can't join the Black Caucus." Well, how in the hell? I thought the Black Caucus would be black people, but if you're a Republican, you can't join the Black Caucus. What's up with that? Just trying to find out what's up here. So you got to be a Democrat to join the Black Caucus, obviously. Does that make sense?
That's the way it is in the federal government. The Black Caucus ain't made up. Tim Scott ain't the part of the Black Caucus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Black man, but he's black.
I can hear you.
But he's not a black part of the Black Caucus.
They must have whacked him off.
Yeah,
like he say he can't hear us.
Oh, he can't hear us.
Can you hear me,
Judge? Oh, wow.
Well, they might be getting mad with us again, but that's okay. We still got to keep the show going.
We better hurry up and say what we got to say, so we.
No, we'll be all right. But we're just talking about the Black Caucus here. But I don't know. They might make it a crime to talk about them sooner or later, right?
Yep. They don't want to look. The Black Caucus has an agenda, and the agenda is one that's shared by.
Can you hear me?
They don't have an agenda that has anything to do with any conservative aspects of anything. So it's really so manipulative. They don't even want to be a part of or include anyone with a consenting viewpoint. They don't want to hear consent. They want everybody to march to their tune, and if they don't, they're not going to be included. Period. Point blank.
Can you hear me? Without the headphone? I don't know if he can hear us.
No. He'll figure it out.
Jesus.
He'll figure it out.
I heard something.
The music, there's some kind of music in the background.
No, ain't no music. I don't know what's going on. This was a good conversation, but I don't know what happened, man. You got to speak.
He's trying to look and see what his.
Well, I'll just keep it going. Yeah. I had to wait for him to see. Can you hear me? The Black Caucus, they don't want this guy in Virginia in the Black Caucus. So
they don't want any dissent. They don't want any dissent. And that's a dangerous thing. Let me tell you something. That's a dangerous thing when you will not allow dissent to speak. When you won't allow the other view to be spoken. That's a very, very dangerous thing. I'm gonna tell you, Bernard, that may be the most dangerous thing of them all. That you won't allow dissent. Anyone that's going to speak in the negative to what you want. That's very dangerous. And you're being censored like you were. That's another example of dissenting view.
Can you hear me, Judge?
They don't want to be broadcast. They don't want to be spoken. And that's very dangerous.
Come out and come back in. Come out, come back in. I just heard him.
But you know what I mean? You are a victim of that. That same thing that they did to Tim Scott, the same thing they did to your conservative representative there in Virginia, is the same thing they did to you. They do not want dissenting.
I think he's the only one, too.
No, but they don't. But it's going to spread. Don't think that it's going to be limited. When they start this, it's like a snowball. It's like a domino effect. One little domino hits another domino until all the dominoes fall. That's their thing, and they're listening to all our programs, and they're ready to push that button to stop all of it as soon as they possibly can. And it's a bad situation when that's what the Nazis did. That's what the communists did. They don't have dissenting views. It's the state, and that's the only thing you hear is what the state wants you to hear. Nobody.
Well, you know what Nancy Pelosi said, right? Nancy Pelosi said, told him, don't protest at the China games.
Yeah, see that? So why send? Yeah. If you think that their life could be in danger, why would you send your athletes to a situation where they're censored once again? They're censored not to speak about anything they see, anything they observe, anything they experience. Don't rock the boat. And we're living in a very you've been talking about this thing for a long time, and I'm going to say it, and I hope you don't get ejected for what I'm getting ready to say. But I have to say it because it's on my heart to say, and I got to say what's on my heart. You have said, and you continue to say, and I agree with you. Oh, Judge is back on. Judge,
you hear me now?
I'm back on. I got dropped for some reason.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
But what I was going to say is that, and you've said it before, that we're moving. And judges also alluded to the fact as well. We're moving in a situation where dissent will not be allowed. Will not be allowed. Opposite opinion vote or voice rather will not be allowed to be spoken. And when you get to a place like that, then we're not too far away from being in a Nazi state. We're not too far
You're
away
right.
from being in a communist state, because there was a man that came from China, and a white woman was interviewing him. A white American woman was interviewing him. And he said that, you know what, you aren't too far from where we were during our Cultural Revolution. And she said, what do you mean by that? The Cultural Revolution in China was that there would be no dissenting voice. Every voice you would hear would be the voice of the state, state approved, state sanctioned, no dissenting voices. And he said, you in America are moving in that direction. Biden already said that if you challenge our authority, you are a domestic terrorist. And that's a bad
situation. Yeah, he did say that.
That's a bad situation for this country to be moving
toward. Bishop, what kind of ignorant jackass in the White House in the United States of America in the 21st century would say something so venally stupid as that?
But we're moving that way, aren't we, Judge? We're moving that way, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And you know what? I thought about that too. But the difference is in China, they had strong men, not little wimpy punks operating behind the scenes.
This country is moving towards totalitarian rule since 9/11.
Yeah, we're a totalitarian state. We are.
See, they're controlling the media. They're not strong men who take charge like in China. They're little punk-ass wimps who run around, oh, you talked against LGBT, you're hate-filled. No, we're not hate-filled against gay folk. We're hate-filled against people that want to corrupt the family, ruin the system, ruin the future, destroy childhood, womanhood, manhood, and generally deal with abject corruption that everybody with half an ounce of sense can see.
Exactly. The BLM,
that's what we are against.
Black Lives Matter movement, I categorize in the same way. It's not about black lives. They've collected millions of dollars, and there's not a dime of it has gone to any black community. I live in a black community. I haven't seen nothing from them as far as what they've raised. They've raised things from all kind of conglomerates and big companies and all this. And where is the money? Where does the money go? I know the leadership, they've had some beautiful homes erected. Largely from that money.
Haven't they?
Yes.
Well, look at the headline you sent me, Brother Johnson. local BLM founder sentenced to the penitentiary for 6.5 years for election fraud. She's got 16 felonies, and what is she supposed to be? The BLM founder?
Yep.
Speaking of, wait a minute, let's come to them. They're coming to them. Wait a minute. They've been telling BLM now to disclose them financial records over them last couple of years too. Come think about it, in California. They've been actually going after them now. So,
well, they need to.
Are the chickens coming home to roost?
Bunch of crooks. It should be. But you see, here's the other thing they don't get. With all of this oppression and voter suppression that the Democratic Party and LGBTQ are pushing, in America, every time you get something, it's a two-edged sword. It swings this way at first and it comes back that way later.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're setting things up for an oppressive situation. And by the way, it's not voter suppression. It is election malfeasance. It is voter fraud that we have to worry about. Nobody is getting prevented from voting in the United States of America. Just get up off your lazy ass and go register. Like you pointed out on many occasions, Bishop, you have a problem physically, but you get up and get to the polls, you register.
Since 1972, I haven't missed an election, even a primary. I go to them all. Special elections, midterm elections, general elections. I get in my little wheelchair and I go. I go up and down the roads to vote. And I've done it since 1972. I haven't used none of my disability and my limitations to limit me from voting, and no one's ever stopped me from voting.
And you know what I find interesting? All of these people that I've found who have been convicted of various forms of fraud, which is fundamental dishonesty, that are hollering about this, they want to remove the requirement that you have voter identification. Now, I mean, you can't go get an ID. What's wrong with you? Or you show up on election day and you don't have ID, and somebody's supposed to say, oh, I know him. That's John Doe. He should be allowed to vote. And they let you vote. Do you believe that these lying, fraudulent con artists that have been pushing this have anything in mind that concerns real honesty? No. They're trying to do voter manipulation. Nobody in America is getting deprived of a vote these days. You get deprived all the time recently of the effect of your vote, but not the ability to vote.
I mean, this very election, with the blacks that voted, Trump would have won. Not just in 2016, but in 2020. If there was really some sort of stopping the blacks from voting, a movement to stop black folk from voting, he would have won straight up. Ain't no doubt about it. Ain't no looking at the record. He would have won straight up. We were not denied the fact.
And then
that's why they won. Because
I'm gonna say something about that too. I'm gonna say something, Bishop.
And by the way, don't forget, take your booties to the poll. Let's not forget that. They want some kind of airheaded, mindless morons who would go vote based on some bare gay ass being shaken from a strip pole. And by the way, Val and I, we went and looked up the people who acted in that thing online, and 1/3 of them were trannies. They weren't even women.
Whoa. Whoa.
Well, wait a minute. Stop. I gotta pivot a little bit because I've been realizing this thing a little bit. And Judge, I told you about this.
Oh, you mean the Shelley suicide?
Jumped from the building, and when I was looking up her profile, it said person who identified as a woman jumped from building in New York. Well, why do you need to identify a woman if you are a woman? I mean, I can see a woman right in front of me. I don't need to identify as nothing. So that was kind of weird. But then I realized that a lot of people have been jumping from skyscrapers over the last 12 years. One of them was a Playboy woman named Stephanie Adams or model. So this thing about jump from these balconies is that new. It's been happening all the time. usually from these skyscrapers.
Yeah,
It's
there's
always
a
in New York.
massive suicide rate. There's a very high suicide rate amongst those people who are confused as to what they are. I mean, think about it.
That's fine.
You got problems if you can't accept what your identity is to begin with.
Well, I'm gonna give you a scenario. This just happened last Friday, so it's hot off the press. I was at the gym and I was in the locker room, and I saw this guy in the sauna 2 months ago. He said to me, well, no, he said he brought a girl in the locker room, so I thought. And he said, and the guys were like, "Damn, you brought a girl in your girlfriend locker room, but she won't sitting with the guys, right?" So I saw him again. I said, "Brother, how old are you, man?" He was an Indian guy. I said, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 24." I said, "I remember you. You're the one that brought your girlfriend in the locker room." He said, "No, that's my homie. That person identifies as a male now." I said, "Oh, that's what it was." He said, "Yeah, and life has been real difficult for that person. You know, they're trying to get that social life back. So every time I see him, I'm trying to help him out." Now, I told him, "You do know people didn't approve of this girl in the locker room or whatever. But I should have, now that I tried to tell other brothers about it, 2 or 3 of about 5 or 6 of them I told. And one of them said that in the military, you can't say nothing to him. The other one said, I would have said, what you doing in here? But most of them said, leave that thing alone, B. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Let that be. Because you can't stop them no more. That's the way of the world today. That's the damn problem, Judge. It's the way of the world. They keep saying this. No. When it happened.
Well, I tell you what it is. It shows. How about this one? It shows the punk ass passivity of the public on a large part who will go along with that. At one time, they wouldn't. See, back in the 60s, Bishop, you remember when people started throwing down and burning down.
Oh, yeah. They
weren't being peaceful about it.
They wouldn't have that stuff.
No, they would not have had that.
But now,
so they got all these little softies on Generation X, your generation, Brother Johnson. You got to do something about them. Who will put up with anything? Shocked, though, and all they do is talk about it.
He actually told me that this person identified as a male now, but it looked like a woman. I'm trying to tell you. I was shocked he did.
But this world is accepting that. You got RuPaul, her famous little drag queen show. You have other shows that are dealing with transsexuals and other things. It's becoming status quo. Children are being taught it in some public schools and about homosexuality. We have to embrace that. They can learn about valuable things and things that are really important, but they will allow that. There's nothing wrong with teaching about those type of things. You got this. Now we got this. Everybody gotta have a pronoun now. Are you he, she, him, her, it, with? Who the heck are you? I'm Gerald. I ain't no he, me. I'm not all that. When I do sign it, I say he, him. That's who I am.
Speaking of school,
I ain't no shim.
Stay right there. Stay
I'm
on the school. Stay on the school. Stay on the school because I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
So last week, Tucker Carlson from Fox News made a comment, and he said that Baltimore has become one of the most violent places in America, right? Bernie Sanders said the same thing actually a couple years ago, but that's okay. Not what I'm saying. But he also brought up Baltimore's grades. And 2 years ago, Baltimore had 13 schools that were failing out of 19, mostly in black areas, right? Or minority neighborhoods, right? So it's a correlation here of failing schools. And this problem got to be addressed. Now, Judge, me and you talked about this on a couple of occasions about this thing in Oregon where they're removing reading and math. Well,
oh God, isn't that pathetic?
Yeah,
not
so
just math, reading.
School,
you don't have to learn to. Well, the female governor in Oregon, a Democrat, signed a bill that says being able to read and do arithmetic is no longer a requirement for a high school diploma because she didn't want to discriminate based on race against black folk. Now, that is so damn insulting. Like, we don't know how to do math and we don't know how to read. What the hell is wrong with you? See, I think that is just a sop to keep more of us in that schoolhouse, jailhouse pipeline,
And
whether it's consciously done or not.
but they won't call that racism. They don't.
That is overt racism.
I think it's racism when you say I don't know how to use a computer, so I can't get an ID. I don't have enough money to spend to get an ID. I don't have the education and the knowledge on how to get one. What are you saying about me? What are you Democrats saying about me?
Well, look at the Democratic Party running Oregon says you're too stupid to learn how to read or do arithmetic by the time you're 18 years old. So we don't need it as a requirement. What does that say
hearing on
in
the
of
street?
itself?
They actually give people hearing needles on the street, though.
Oh, they'll do that. They'll destroy your community. They'll do that. They'll allow you to destroy yourself. They'll allow you to do that.
So, Judge, now they're saying BLM is going crazy up there in Minnesota again about a black man that got killed, and it's right on the heels of the George Floyd officers, the 3 officers that think they might be tried. The governor, the mayor said they're gonna remove temporarily a no-knock warrant case or something like that. So here comes BLM.
They're gonna remove no-knock warrants from their slate of things. Yeah, and by the way, they're gonna be more shootings than not as a result of removing that tool. Cops go in, they got one time my senior bailiff, when I had that show 15 years, he had moved over to, I went out with them and they had a warrant to serve and they kicked in the door, no knock. And this guy dived for a 12-gauge shotgun that he had over in the corner. It was a side-by-side double, sawed off. It was unloaded. And the woman, naked, dived for a pistol. They were trying to load it. Now, if they had knocked, and announced, somebody would have been shot. I saw that, so what the devil? You want to take that away? Because they were jumpy enough as it is. The law, they were going to blow somebody away if it had been, you couldn't break off in there and stop something from happening before it happened. There are going to be some people die because you've got some ignoramuses that have no life experience.
Well,
rather pathetic, actually.
Well, I know they said BLM was raising funds in Canada and stuff like that. So they've been raising money a lot of places. So it's almost time. But I know we call this Man Up Monday. So I got to talk about some things that Judge would probably, and Bishop actually today, since Bishop you're on, we got to talk about some man up stuff, man, because this stuff is getting lunatic, man. What the hell is going on around here, right? What are we doing? Is everybody soft today? What the hell is going on? People say, I got people even telling me, hey, look, man, you need to water down that a little bit because you offended somebody. Well, I'm sorry, brother. I can't help that. I'm sorry, sister. I can't help that. Maybe some people need to be offended. Judge, I know. So I've had even a woman tell me she don't like how Judge criticized Lizzo, but Lizzo might put herself in position to be criticized. Maybe not the names, but she gonna put herself in position to be criticized for what she's doing. So everybody gotta be held accountable for their actions today. Is that right?
What's wrong with criticizing somebody that puts themselves in public looking like a fat sea creature? You saw what they did up there at the zoo in Columbus, Ohio. They named that rescued sea manatee, big blubber-laden creature, Lizzo. Well, hell, she looks like it. And she's been publishing pictures of herself looking like a big fat sea creature. Aside from it looking hideous, it's just in poor taste. And what about the girls, the children that look at this stuff? See, that's unseeming.
I was talking to a sister. I'm Bishop. You can go ahead. I just want to bring something to, and we were talking about music, and I said, really, to tell you the truth, back in the day, Cardi B wouldn't have registered on nobody's radio. Well, they had Lil Kim and Foxy Brown and them, so they might have registered. But Cardi B would not be a part of the cream of the crop. This woman got 100 million followers on Twitter, I think, or more. So she's got a big following. So a lot of people are listening to it.
Well, my day, and I know when Judge Brown, because we're in the same day, we grew up around the same time. None of this would have been in existence. I mean, none of this. I mean, Cardi B. I mean, and really, we predate Shaka Khan. We predate all those people that began to move in that direction. We predate all of that. I mean, I came along during the time of some of the earlier guys. I mean, Chuck Berry. I mean, going way back. But I mean, that's what I grew up with. I mean, Arthur Prysock. That's who I grew up with. I mean, those kind of people. And then you got the Motown sound, the Temptations, the OJs, other people like that. Those are the kind of people that, well, really, even before the OJs, because they came along, I was a little older.
So, let me ask you two older gentlemen in
with. I mean, Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye. I used to love that duet. I mean, Dionne Warwick. Those are the music.
Can we get it back to the way it was?
Came along with. But now it's a different era. I understand that. But
But can we get it back to the way it was, though? I mean, can we at least get some semblance of normalcy, or are we? What's up?
Yeah, you can, but you can. You can, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to speak Mandarin Chinese. You saw January last year, 2021, when China implemented a man up campaign. They said the men are too soft and they're getting into the wrong mindset based on their consumption of Western entertainments. Now, what are we doing? The U.S. government's got a thing trying to recruit for the service of showing some tranny bullshit.
Well, we came along, right, Judge, where Ozzie and Harry didn't sleep in the same bed. Ricky and Lucy didn't sleep in the same bed. The Father No Best and Beaver Cleaver's mother, Ward and June Cleaver, they slept in different beds. They slept in the same room. They had children, so you knew they had some kind of sexual activity, but it wasn't put out.
Yeah, because they had children.
Right, so we knew they had sons, they had daughters, whatever. But so we knew they had a family, but it wasn't. But it's things. I'm going to tell you the truth, and this is what I'll say this, and this is why we were different a little bit. We had to use imagination. Things weren't flaunted in our face. We had to use our own imagination. Even when we played, I know we couldn't afford certain toys. So what we would do is play with spoons and make them. I know I have a deck of cards, and I made a kingdom out of that. The kings were kings, and the ones and twos were their servants. And I mean, you use your imagination. There's no more imagination. Nothing is left to the imagination. Everything is right up front. Everything is right there at you, throwing itself right in your face. And there's no more time to. And imagination means I got to use my brain. I have to use my brain. I have to create. I have to think about things. I have to analyze things. And I have to figure out things. We didn't have calculators, so we had to do math.
Wrong. They tell you how to think now, and not what to think. That's the thing. I tell you how to think.
They teach you how to think and what to think. They teach you both. They teach you both.
Yeah.
They want you to believe and think LGBTQ BS. And by the way, I find it offensive. It's cruelty to animals to sit there and take that fat sea creature and get her out of the salt water up on a beach someplace where she's obviously suffering.
Jesus.
That is just a shame. They ought to get SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and get them on the case and get them away from trying to save the Negroes who are going to be put out in the cold for the winter.
You know what I wonder, though? I was wondering what you all thought about Biden's appearance in New York. And to me, once again, a photo op, certainly an opportunity to go into the city and show himself, quote unquote presidential.
Well, he funded the police. You know that, right? He ain't defunding no police. You know that, right? As a matter of fact, 75 police officers got killed last year, which was the most since 1995. So they're saying on record. So that defunding police thing is not no more. Actually, they actually funding the police more. If you really want to know.
Oh, it's just talk point BS. And by the way, Bishop, you were right about that thing in New York. I did not like what I saw. It was just Hollywood BS.
It was.
You know, speaking of which, back to the sea creature that needs to be in a tank of water. Didn't mothers used to say, leave a little to the imagination when they talk to their daughters or your sisters or your cousins, or you know what I'm saying? Leave a little bit. So you got a sea creature. Well, I guess they don't wear clothes anyway. Maybe that's why she doesn't. She's always trying to be naked. What is that? Humans don't do that. You know, I mean, if you're dancing on a pole and somebody wants to hop over you, okay, fine, you know, or hip over you, or like they named that, what is it, the sea manatee after her up in the Columbus Zoo. Yeah, okay, fine. But women don't walk out in public naked, even the fine ones.
Well, there were modest apparel during those days. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but how about indecent exposure? That's still on the books.
The most
you got a hog walking naked down the street.
But the most central women were Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne. They were, I mean, they were the most glamorous, the most beautiful, really the most sensual women we had out there. But they were very conservatively dressed. They didn't flaunt themselves like that, and yet they were beautiful. I mean, these women, anyone would gravitate toward, anyone would want on their arm as their lady, and that they carry themselves with dignity, respectability, and yet it did not minimize their sensuality or their sexuality. They still were very attractive, very desirous women, though they weren't dressed in a blatantly obscene way.
Okay.
Well, they might have had a swimsuit pinup thing.
Yeah.
Cutesy little cheesecake, but it was tasteful.
Right.
They just didn't have a whale wallowing down the sidewalk or out to the limo stark naked with a curtain draped over it that you could see through. I mean, and as far as, well, what about Rihanna? Well, it's like you go to museums and you see periods from all over the world where they have naked women sculpted because they look beautiful. They didn't sculpt the ugly ones. Come on now. And beauty is important for humanity, because if humans had not selected for beauty or strength, we'd still be the size of chimpanzees and looking like them.
But let me bring up something here.
I don't know about you, but I don't prefer a chimp, you know.
But let me bring up something here, because I wanted to bring up something, and it's getting to the boiling point with the Biden administration. You see, the problem with this thing is they keep on talking about crime. You got to watch Biden, man, because they could gonna come up with some legislation for a new crime bill. You got to watch these guys. These guys are tricky. And by the fact that we don't read enough legislation all the time, this is where we get kicked in the ass. Okay.
Well, Biden stressed the point once again, this gun control thing, that we need to can get the guns off the street and not get the criminals off the street. So they're letting criminals go after violation after violation, but they want to take your guns away.
Bishop.
And now here you
Bishop.
are.
In LA, they just robbed the damn train with cargo on it. And they took like guns off the train in LA. How did they know that this train had guns on it?
There you go. But the criminals still got their guns. So you're taking the guns out of the citizens' hands.
Yeah, see, it's...
Go on, Judge.
See, the stuff that is really dangerous comes in with the drugs. Every big shipment of hardcore drugs is usually accompanied by a few crates of Kalashnikov, the hardware. That's where it comes from. And good citizens don't buy black markets guns, but the crooks do. So if you're willing to go murder somebody and risk the chair or the chamber, giving you an extra 5 years for having a firearm while you do it is not going to deter anybody who is a crook bent on breaking the law and taking somebody's life or not giving a damn about it. What they are advocating is like some fool who has mental health problems advocating that a country unilaterally disarm on the national field while everybody else is armed to the teeth. It's ridiculous. And nation states are just collections of humans. And those come up, well, this is the United States, we're civilized. No, America has certain rights that you have that trying to be taken away now, but you have those rights because people have the right to be armed. Now, this is the modern theory that I would propose is the modern theory. Well, you can't have explosives, cannons, and bombs and stuff like that. No, but at least you can arm yourself to the extent that you can conduct asymmetric counter warfare if somebody tries to take over the government. Remember, the United States with just flintlock muskets and hunting rifles staged the world's first successful modern revolution. And we can't hang in Afghanistan. We can't hang in Iraq. We couldn't hang in the Nam when the citizenry could conduct asymmetric warfare with small arms. So as long as the people can make it extremely difficult for a tyranny to take over, that's good for the cause. And they want to disarm us so we have no right to self-defense. Hell, they're probably pushing for what they did in Great Britain for a decade or two, where you no longer had a right to self-defense. You had to take it. They wanted to kill you. That was better for the society than you fighting back.
But the sad part about it, add on to that, is that we're taking away the guns, so we have no guns, but you're letting the criminals who do have guns and have access to guns back out in the street, get their gun. You don't have one. They'll now come in your house, blow your brains out.
Free the righteous brothers who are in the joint. Free the righteous brothers in the penitentiaries so they can lead the people. No, they're not going to lead anybody.
No. Oh, that's
97.5% of the people in jail pled guilty. They didn't get convicted. Some of them are in there wrongfully, but most of them are not.
I got a question for both of you on this one. This is kind of like way off script. I didn't really plan to put this in here, but I am. So there's been a lawsuit going on in the NFL. I'm sure you heard about it. This coach named Brian Flores and other coaches are saying that they were paid get money to lose games, and that there's a thing with not a lot of black coach kids will get hired. But the Rooney Rule says that you got to interview a minority, but that don't mean I got to hire you. Now they have our coach get hired today, and they had another one get. But I'm like, if that's the way we feel, hey, just don't watch the game. Like I see Kaepernick was over there with Spike Lee the other night making a documentary or something in New York or something, and he got heckled outside. But if it's a problem, just don't go to the game or don't watch the game or don't buy no jerseys or something. But $40. But why is this? Why are we talking about this? What's going on here, Judge? And
another thing, once again, we as Americans, when I'm talking about we always want to incorporate slavery, and in the case of other people, other genocidal kind of situations. Once again, they're saying that players are being treated like they're on the plantation, like they're slaves, and I can understand there being aspects of that, but you can't tell me a person who has a $33 million contract can be equated to someone who works night and day.
Remember,
for nothing.
Bishop, what is it? We focus for our role models on bug dancing monkeys who caper around on little silver chains while somebody's playing a hand organ.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You get the imagery. That's what we focus on. Julius Caesar said, "Done pane e secelsiae." Give them bread and circuses, and the peasants won't care what the hell their betters do. So we are so focused on bread and circuses, getting fed and entertained, we don't give a damn what the rest of the folk do. So they try to perpetrate it. I tell folk, I mean, football's nice. I'm glad for the brother that makes this excessive amount of money for a sports that's gotten so soft lately. But what does it do for you?
Nothing.
Does it get you a better job? Does it you somebody in office who is not a charlatan, who is in there trying to rip you off? Does it make it safer for your daughters? You know, what's going on? Well, to answer the question, if it don't deal with that, it ain't worth it.
Well, you know, I got a lot of friends that say that. I'm glad you said bread and circuses. But if you think about it, Judge, I mean, we can equate that to the Grammy Awards, the NAACP Image Awards. We can put bread and circuses in anything, right?
But you know what? But Bernard, let me say this. I was watching
two thumbs up on that one.
I was watching a YouTube program just the other day, not YouTube, TikTok, and there it said all the great accomplishments that Black people have made to America. And you know what they said? The only thing they said, we brought jazz, we brought hip hop, we brought R&B, we brought rock and roll. Everything was about music. Nothing about the fact that some of the greatest minds in the NASA department were Black women who served and Black men who served in the
Forget the Black women with all due respect, but that is a dodge. If you watch the Science Channel, the trajectory chief of NASA is a young Black man named Alusi. And he's down with the cause, and he goes out and speaks to Black youth about getting their stuff together. He came off of the streets, went to the Marine Corps, came back, went through MIT, and he runs the ballistic trajectory. But you see, you don't think of Black men as hardcore scientists. He's the boss.
But the point I was trying to make is that the only accomplishment we made, and I think that's the problem. We emphasize the fact.
Yeah, well, all about music. Obviously, that is a problem. Bug dancing monkeys out there that are entertainers. So what is it?
I was trying to piggyback on what you were saying.
And frankly, I can't play basketball worth a damn. I played football. I mean, I can't sing or play an instrument. So what am I supposed to do? I'm worthless and I ain't shit because I can't buck dance to entertain somebody and sing and shout and act a fool.
So
what about all of the rest of the folk?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That are that way.
You know, so they spent 5 minutes of that TikTok, which is almost unusual. But they kept on, and I said, are they ever going to bring up a fact of a Joe Brown? Are they ever going to bring up a fact of someone who did something, all the inventions that we did? Are you going to bring up anything? Martin Luther King, anybody that did something other than sing a song? Is that all?
That's it. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Judge. I hadn't had you on here in a couple months because they've been censoring me, but that's okay. Glad he brought up Martin Luther King. Because I didn't get you on, Judge, to talk about Martin Luther King Day last month. Just speak about it for 3 minutes. That's all you got to do. Because you know Biden and them were saying, we're not going to celebrate Martin Luther King Day if you don't pass this voting rights bill.
It's not up to that bastard.
No. Yeah, that's what kind of crazy.
But I know I was with you in Memphis and we saw
look,
stuff like that. So you know what I'm saying.
Look here. He got a facelift. That shows you how useless his ass is. You running for president, so you get a facelift. I know he's ugly, motherfucker. He ain't goddamn. But excuse me, Bishop. But a facelift? Oh, you run for president? Oh, that is a low. I think that is the lowest low.
But we keep on talking about Martin Luther King Day every year, Judge. Wait a minute, Judge. Wait a minute. Now, hold on. We can talk about Martin Luther King Day And then June, we coming to Juneteenth. So, and this time it will be recognized as a federal holiday, by the way. Juneteenth will be recognized as a federal holiday this time, coming around the clock.
And keep in mind, just interjecting ourselves, who's going to really be off that day? Federal workers, okay? I mean, the average Joe, and I don't mean you, Judge Brown, but the average
yeah, I know. And most of those federal workers are working from home anyway due to COVID-19.
Yeah, so they gonna meet. That's what I'm saying. What they do with us means nothing, and yet we make it seem like it means everything. And they do it in a timely fashion. They've been doing something about Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill for 5 years. Ain't been no Harriet, ain't been no Frederick Douglass, ain't been nobody. Andrew Jackson, the most racist president ever, still sits on the $20 bill. We are so hypocritical, so blinded by what they promise, these empty promises that they never fulfill. And we keep on falling for the okie doke time and time again. And nobody said, man, 5 years, that means 2 presidents. And now when the 3rd president talked about this thing, Obama was the first one that talked about it. Trump came along, he's 4 years. You got Biden, and we still ain't got nobody but Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. We are so gullible.
And want to hear the truth of the matter, when I had that show, I'd often be in the corridors of power at Paramount Studios out in Hollywood. And I'd hear these lesbian feminists discussing how they were going to get a female, any female, on a bill. And at the time, they were coming up with Harriet as a movie. But Harriet was not the Harriet Tubman who is the runaway slave. She was going to be morphed into a white woman from the North who married a Southerner. And she was offended about slavery. So they were going to have this white woman do what Harriet Tubman did to save 240 slaves that didn't really want to run away. So they were going to use that as a way to push getting Harriet on a $20 bill. And the discussion I heard was about, well, isn't one of them a black woman and the one we've got on the TV a white woman? Well, on the movie, a white woman. Well, but nobody remembers. It's just the idea. So they wanted to get a woman. And I heard them specifically discuss the bad effect it would have on black men. And in Hollywood, they consider straight black men as the worst of the worst. We need to be exterminated, all put in jail or whatever. And they hated me because I was a straight black man. They are really dangerous.
Well, Judge, like I always say,
let me ask you a question. When you think of Japan, do you think of samurai, bonsai, kamikaze, or do you think of geishas?
Not the last one, brother.
Do you think that at the end of World War II, all of those people worried about having to invade Japan were worried about geisha, or whether they were worried about samurai descendants and Bushido and kamikaze? We can answer. They weren't thinking about geishas. So why the hell did they keep pushing this shit of we are supposed to think black woman when we think black folk instead of black men? Have you seen the latest Macy's ads now? Did you send me this around? This is an illustration. A couple of years ago for Christmas, they had all of these pajama ads from Macy's. And they had white families, man and woman and children. They had a black female and a bunch of kids, single parent head of households. They had a white lesbian and a black lesbian and some kids, or a black sweet boy and a white one and some kids, but they did not have a single mom and dad black with kids. Now, have you seen the latest one for Valentine's Day, where they got a pretty good looking sister? She's got her head up and obviously her boyfriend is kissing her on the cheek, but he's got facial tats on. Come on now. Is that how black folk are supposed to be presented?
Okay, I got a question, Judge. Quick question. Well, not a question, because in closing, I wanted to bring up some things that you've been doing. I see you done work with Kwame, Ernestine King, and a few others. How was that experience down there in Atlanta?
It was good. There's some hardworking folk who are really dedicated to the cause. They've had some half steps in life and they've recovered. And now they've learned a lesson and they're trying to push stuff for the benefit of the people. I really like Kwame Brown because he's a well-meaning brother and he is father to 3 children all by himself, a single parent, which is a role reversal thing. They don't like to talk about all the black men. And by the way, a fundamental truth, the demographic that pays its child support most regularly and on time are black men in the whole of the United States. But the lie, even told by that fake Negro half-breed Bush buddy, Obama Tang, had a 2007 Father's Day thing about black folk being the worst when it came to paying child support. That's an outright lie. We're the best. Now, the other bit, it's a psych thing. It's easier to control some people if you control their mind than trying to intimidate them, because you can turn them into sissies.
And
King,
she's been putting out some good work, I see.
If you, Angela Stanton King is very good. She and her husband runs a trucking business, and both of them take care of a lot of business for the community. I like what they do.
Well, good.
They're trying to get the word out.
I'm glad you
and they get suppressed.
Atlanta's a wacky place, and
several times.
But
yeah,
let's talk about. So we got to talk about one thing, because I'm gonna let you. Well, now you know what, Bishop, go ahead and you shout out your stuff first, because I'm gonna let him end it off on one thing.
Okay. Well, every Wednesday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Real Talk with the G-Man on Blog Talk Radio. We invite you to be a participant. I know Judge has been on my program several times over the years. Bernard, you're a regular on the program. We invite you to come. We do as we do here, discuss some of the most modern or current events, as well as some historical perspective, like Judge Brown always brings. And I need to have you back on, Judge, because there's a couple of legal points I really want to bring up, and I need someone who has been a legal analyst, a legal professional, a judge who knows about the law for more than half a century. And I need your expertise really to break down some things for me, and I know for my listening audience. So I will be contacting you this week to come on the show specifically to speak on a couple of points I really need some clarification on myself, and I'm sure others who listen to the show would appreciate it as well.
All right, Bishop, it'll be my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
By the way, I'll keep you in mind and listen to you in my head when I'm running for mayor in Memphis, Tennessee in 2023.
Well, that's what I'm about to tell you to talk about. That's what I'm about to tell you to finish off.
JJB in 23. Send Brown downtown.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And I got some.
Now,
the other thing. Hold on. Let's talk about
the other thing. Go ahead, Bishop. Go ahead.
Now, I was saying I got some kinfolk in Memphis, Tennessee. I've been talking about you to them.
There you go.
I've been talking about you to them.
And by the way, you know, all these men and women coming up saying thank you for supporting the family, and as you put it, manhood, womanhood, and childhood. And these are white folk. They're listening too. See, everybody is not into this lie that's being told long and loud about everybody supports all this perversion. Now, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. That's your business. Get your freak on. But when you start putting your filthy hands on our children and grandchildren, that's another thing. When you start trying to wreck manhood, womanhood, childhood, then that's another thing. When you start trying to spend public funds in ill-advised ways, that's another thing. you become a political creature then. So you're just as open to pushback as the Democratic Party is, as the Republican Party is. So the BS party, I call it. Now, that's another thing, but there is one other product. It's not BS. It's actually quite tasty, and I defy you to tell me with a straight face you've ever had better that your granddaddy didn't make or something, or your uncle. Judge Joe Brown Barbecue. You can go online to jjbbbq.com and order yourself some, and everybody that's tasted it says it's the best they've ever had. We're doing regular sauce right now. We will soon have OG sauce and hot. We will have seasoning powder. We will have chicken links and various other and sundry products. And it will be on sale at some major supermarket chains about the spring. So order one bottle, but I suggest you get at least 3 because it's good. You can put it on French fries, veggies, chicken, turkey, duck, goat, lamb, cow, and if you deal with the oink stuff, it works with Mr. Pig too. So try it out. It's great stuff. JJB, Judge Joe Brown, you can remember that, barbecue, BBQ.com. JJBBBQ.com.
And I know, shout out Valerie Jones, but I also got to shout out Dr. Carmen Johnson's got a book coming out in March, and I don't know if she's watching, but she's got a book coming out. So,
I was gonna go there,
but it's always good, to hang on. Like I said, the censorship buzzers, the YouTube fanatics, they got too much into this stuff. But I'm back now, planning on staying back. But I'm glad that I was able to get you back on it, actually with Bishop and stuff. And I just had to get y'all both on tonight because I had told him I had to get him on too, because after all this stuff. But
well, I always enjoy being on with Bishop.
And I enjoy being with you.
No problem, man.
Always.
Yeah. And look,
so much.
I think,
let me give a shout out. Dr. Carmen Johnson, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, who's got some book stuff coming out. She's on Amazon's top 10 list. And see, I'm not bad mouthing the sisters. There's a thing that I always keep in mind. There's a human concept called the wise woman. And wise women must be listened to, but foolish ones, no time for that. Right. So wise women, yeah. But Dr. Carmen Johnson's got a great book. Hell, I wrote a foreword to it. It's a good book. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, and Lord, that woman is fine to look at. She's got a good book out. I had to pause. Not that Dr. Johnson ain't good to look at. She is, but she got a few years on Dr. Bryant, and Dr. Bryant is one of them in that prime thing, and Dr. Bryant likes to flash a little bit, not like Lizzo and Cardi B, but I mean, yeah. And if you can, catch Free the Pain.
What's the number? 515?
Now, Bishop, we were talking about
515-602-9655.
Okay,
515-602-9566 or 696.
And also, don't forget, and we've all been on this one too, the real Dana. She comes on Thursday night. She may aggravate some people, but she's trying to focus on getting stuff together. Well, and by the way, we talk on the phone.
She sent me a good text tonight. At a time. Yeah. She sent me a good text tonight.
And sometimes she's listening. Sometimes I have to do the man thing on Miss Dana, but she's a good sister. Good women will fuss at you, and that's the point. They have a license to fuss at you. But Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna say
what it
this.
is. Yeah, one other person, if you can catch one of her performances out in LA at various jazz clubs or over in Spain where she is a lot, the magnificent Miss Frida Payne. You remember Miss Frida
Yeah,
Payne, Bishop?
band of
I
gold,
might be a little bit too young
band
for
of
that
gold,
one, man. But hey, whatever.
Yeah,
band
bring
of
the
gold,
boys home.
band of gold.
Yeah, now she was our Beyonce and
She was
Rihanna
fine.
in a
She was fine.
tasteful
She was
fashion.
fine. I liked her.
And look, we dated for 8 years and still good friends.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
got a phone number in
I
the
used to like her though.
machine.
I used to like the way she looked.
Yeah, we dated for 8 years.
I envy you. I envy you,
Tell
Judge.
brother Johnson doesn't have a perspective. Give him a perspective.
I do about
Some
I look
other
up
later
tonight.
time.
I do about
Yeah,
Frida.
you do.
Well, this is
Look,
all I'm
I
gonna
had
say.
a poster of Frida. I had a poster of Frida up in every room of my apartment when I was in school. Look at here, and in law school. But that woman, oh Lord, she's still fine.
Well,
But
hey, look,
anyway,
man. This is all I'm gonna say to y'all. Look, I know I'm 34. I'll be 35 this year. I'm glad that y'all came on my program. You know, it's always good to reach out to somebody because sometimes the way I talk, I mean, sometimes y'all some of the only people that might understand me. But I got a lot of people my age younger too to do. But
Yeah.
it can be
well, I
fun
like
to
the way you talk, young man.
Yeah,
I got 40 years. I got 40 some years on you. I'm a little older than Bishop, but yeah, I like what you're saying. You're a hope for the future.
oh yes, he
Well,
is.
yeah, that's good. I'm glad to know because there's a whole lot of people that eating at me. I thought they used to be all right with me, but then when you really start, saying no, we gotta stop this censorship crap and this trans stuff. We gotta get this thing back in order because at the end of the day, the civilization will collapse. You know it if you keep doing it. But I will say this: always, judges, always a pleasure to come on. Bishop, always a pleasure to come on. Thank y'all for blessing with y'all presence tonight. I'm about to go cook me something to eat. So
Okay, my brother.
I'm hungry.
Let's
I
go
just
back.
got from the gym, but I said I gotta do this tonight.
Thanks for having us.
See what I'm doing? 2 thumbs up.
Two
All right,
thumbs
take
up.
your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Luke, power to the people, brother.
See you Friday, Judge, on your show.
Take your time.
Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Judge Brown Show.
And the number is 929-477-1167. 929-477-1167.
We're going to be
Gotcha.
there.
Take your time.
Good night, everyone.
Gotcha.